Hey guys, Tarke and a cat and the coolest birthday card in existence. Thanks, Mum. Right, so quick warning, this video is going to be somewhat of a long one and it will mostly be me talking. So maybe put this in the background while you play some games because this could take a while. Now, what I want to talk about is the pros and cons of streamer early access. When I say streamer early access, I mean all content creators, so I mean streamers, YouTubers, podcasters, whatever. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say that I have both benefited from this system. I have been given early access due to streaming, and I have been on the outside of this system by not being a big enough streamer. So I can kind of somewhat talk from both sides, even though I'm a tiny YouTuber, because I have benefited and disbenefited, or not benefited. You get what I'm saying? So what sort of brought on this discussion? Well, it's something that I've been watching for a long time. You get the memes coming out, people complaining that they never get to play the games. Had this with Heroes of the Storm. The way that Heroes of the Storm access was handled upset a lot of players. We've had this with Only Watch, we have a lot of people who really want to play the game who they can't play it. We've had this with Legion, we have this with pretty much every single WoW expansion, and also somewhat recently we've had this with Path of Exile, and Path of Exile has a new expansion coming out on the 4th of March. So I'm going to come at this from a few different games, going to be talking about why I think the system is good, why I think the system is bad, and just kind of elaborate a bit on it. So, using the most recent example with Path of Exile, what we have here is something which is kind of interesting. So in case you don't know, it's an ARPG. They're having a big major content patch drop on the 4th of March. This is being recorded as of the 29th of February, right? Within the last 3 or 4 days, they've allowed certain streamers to stream the alpha. Okay, so that's fair enough. Now, technically, it should be called a beta, not an alpha, because a product which is launching in 5 days hopefully should be out of alpha, but anyway. Now, what's interesting or odd about this situation is there are a lot of streamers, high-profile Path of Exile streamers, who have access to the alpha, but are signed to an NDA. They cannot talk about, they cannot show, they cannot stream anything, because they aren't some of the streamers with the NDA that they can, say stuff. So we're having this quite interesting thing going on where we have the streamers who can stream it having conversations with the guys with access, and the guys with access can't say anything. They need to wait for the streamer with access to mention the topic, and then they can somewhat-ish maybe throw out suggestions, what they think may or may not be the case, even though they know exactly what is or isn't the case. So in that system, it's flawed to hell. And another quite big issue is there's quite a few high-profile Path of Exile streamers who don't have any access at all to alpha. They don't have access to it, and they can't make content about it, and they don't have access to it and can make content about it. Now, the reason why this is bad, and this is something which I think is often overlooked, is that it pushes people out of the community. Because if you are a content creator, like there's levels, right? So for me, I'm not making any money off YouTube, right? This is something that I enjoy, and it's something I'm going to keep doing, and maybe one day I will become a YouTuber, but I don't make money off this. So if I can't make videos, it doesn't really affect me on a financial level. It doesn't affect the way I live, right? You have people who this is their job, like this is their livelihood, this is how they pay their bills. And when you get most streamers, most YouTubers, they tend to be tied to a particular title, or at the very least a particular genre. Yes, okay, there are the PewDiePies who just play everything, but more often than not, it's you're a streamer or you're a YouTuber and you are known for playing, 1 to 3 games, and that is what you play. Outside of that, like, you might be the MMO guy, you might be the FPS guy, but generally it's like you are known for playing this one game. So when you have the people who've built a career out of playing this one game, there's a big new patch coming out, and they don't have access to it, it shuts them out of their livelihood to some extent. Yes, they can still report on second-hand news, and what they have to do is they have to go to the forums, they have to watch the other streamers with access, make lots and lots and lots and lots of notes, and then report that info secondhand. The issue with that, though, is the streamers with access are already the biggest streamers anyway. And by locking off access, you keep like a top echelon. You make a barrier which becomes even harder to break through. As a smaller content creator, regardless if you're on Twitch or YouTube, it is very difficult to break into and or above the people at the top. So when you start handing out limited access, it makes it even more difficult, right? So that's from a content creator's point of view. Now, from a viewer's point of view, you go, well, yeah, Tarke, I get that it kind of sucks for the people who do it for a living, but for the viewers, it's great. It's only ever good for the viewers when the access is within, I would say, 1 to 2 months of the product shipping. So, for example, going back to Path of Exile, because there's only like a 2-week period of people being able to stream content and it going live, all it does is build hype. It just builds lots and lots and lots of hype. So it gets the audience, it gets the player base excited. Now, if we compare this to Overwatch, or Heroes of the Storm, or any game which has followed that model, but we'll use those two. You have alphas go out like a year before the launch. And what will happen is there's a lot of initial buzz, and everyone's like, ooh, this seems cool. This seems really, really cool, guys. They then get kind of salty that they can't play themselves, because like, this actually looks really fun. Can I buy into it? I can't even buy into it. Okay. Some cases people are forced to buy into it, which is a whole other issue, which I'm not going to get into. And they go, oh, I wish I could play this game. I wish I could play this game. A few months go by. Now, most people aren't still watching Overwatch streams. There are very few people watching Overwatch streams right now. There are people who really want to play Overwatch, but, you know, next month it's out of their mind. There's a new release on the horizon. Ooh, have you heard they're doing this new DLC for Fallout? Oh, I really want to go play that now. Oh, this new game's coming out. Far Cry Primal's coming out. Oh, I better go play that. And the old games get pushed further and further and back. And Overwatch is a new game. Overwatch is a game which hasn't even come out yet, but it's being pushed backwards in people's minds because it was announced and streamed so early. Now, this is the main reason I think Heroes of the Storm is considered a small MOBA. Yeah, okay, it's got a pretty healthy population, but it's definitely smaller than the other big hitter MOBAs. And I think a lot of that is because that when it was initially announced, everyone got hyped. There was a really empty period. Then a bunch of people could stream it. Then there was a really, really empty period. Then some more people could stream it. And then, like, eventually, months and months and months later, it came out. But by that point, there wasn't any excitement left in the title. So it kind of just fell to dead ears. Yes, there will always be the try-hard fans. There will always be the dudes who follow it from day one to release. But you lose a lot of people along the way. So it kind of punishes those guys. Now, from the point of view of a content creator with access to alpha, especially when they do it with like a limited alpha access, like you can play for this week, or if we had recently the Division, you can play for this weekend, it puts you in quite an interesting scenario because you go, oh god, I've got access, I have to play. And because you know you can only play it for like those 2 days, it forces you to only play that for those 2 days and try and make as much content as you can out of it. Now, from the company's point of view, this is amazing, because by doing very heavily limited availability, it basically forces promotion. Because if you are doing this for a living, again, I'm talking for someone who's doing this as a hobby, not as a living, so take that into account with all my arguments. But if you're one of those guys doing this for a living, and you have to meet uploads, like you have to have X amount of uploads to keep your channel healthy, then you need to churn out the content. And you need to be churning out the most current clickbait, and the most current clickbait is generally that game with the weekend. Like, that Division weekend access is huge viewership for that weekend alone. And you know that when you're making that content exists in a bubble, because that video or that stream or whatever is only interesting for a very short, finite period of time, but you are forced to make it. Right. Now, another big, and this is like my biggest con when it comes to giving streamers and YouTubers early access especially with, I'm talking months, months and months before launch. I don't mind if it's like a week or a month before launch, but when we're talking like a year sometimes, like what we currently have with Legion, is I feel like it gives the companies just a free ride, because they basically, they don't need to worry about any PR themselves. They've got all these guys doing all the work for them. Now, the reason why this is a bad thing, because again you go, well, this is great for the company. It isn't, because it makes the companies lazy. If we look at Legion, and we look at the way that Legion information is being put out to the community, it is entirely coming from the community. Very little info is coming from Blizzard itself. And Blizzard isn't the company which invented this system. They are not the ones who have caused this system, but they are perpetuating the system through the way they handle their content. So they know that the best way for Blizzard to get info out there is for them to do absolutely nothing, leave it to Warhead, leave it to MMO Champion. They will data mine, they will put up the forum posts. You'll get people like Bellular, you've got people like Asmongold, people like Preach, Final Boss, Quelric, Heel vs Babyface, Nobble, hundreds of others, Doran's Movies, all these channels, sorry if I've forgotten you. And they will pump out the content, and they will keep pumping out the content, and they will keep pumping out the content. And all it does is it makes companies like Blizzard have to do less work. And the problem you have there is the content comes out in the wrong manner. It doesn't come out in a very efficient manner, and it makes the company look lazy. So let me break all of that down, jumping back to Path of Exile. So Path of Exiles has this new expansion coming out on the 4th. For the last like 4 months, they've been slowly drop feeding information. Very basically, the main new feature of this upcoming expansion is subclasses. Think of it like specializations in World of Warcraft. Previously, you were only a mage, and now they're introducing Fire, Frost, Arcane. Real basic. Now, they had something like 19 subclasses to announce. So the way they handled it was 1 week they would show a couple to the community, a week would go by, they'd show another couple, week would go by, they'd show another couple, drip feeding the information. They had a new skills coming out. They made little skill promo videos, really nice, really classy, just 1 minute videos showing off a few mechanics. Really stripped back, not even that much work. Like, it would be one dude in the office would have to do the video. Like, you just have one dude in the office and that's just his job. And it takes him probably about 3 hours at most with editing to get that video out there. Maybe 4 or 5 if he's doing some fancy, you know, filters and stuff. But like really basic stuff. And that's not work. And that's a really small company. That's a tiny company. Compare that to someone like Blizzard, and imagine what Blizzard could do. Now, we had a very slight inkling at this, where just after BlizzCon, we had the class blogs coming out. And I did a few videos on those, and they had really good reception, and the blogs had amazing reception. If you missed them, basically what it was right after BlizzCon. Again, it was a similar thing of like every couple of days, it's put up a new couple of blogs, and they'd be like, this is the Hunter blog. And it would talk about what they wanted to do with each spec, where they wanted to take the Hunter going forward, and they showed off some artifact weapon stuff. And this was great, and this got a lot of hype going, but we just had BlizzCon, and then we had all the class stuff, and that was all done within about 2 weeks, and then it was silence. Like, nothing, there's like nothing coming from Blizzard. Then, eventually, we got the alpha come out, and then the community carried the news onto the community. And that is a backward system. That is a really backward system. You have the community, and you should use the community intelligently. So if you don't want someone in the office to make that video, then this is what you do. You go, Preach. We're giving you this exclusive content, and you are going to be the dude who puts out this exclusive video. And Preach will work really hard at it, because Preach is good at making videos. Like, have you seen his legacy videos? He does them amazingly well. So if you said, Preach, we're giving you the warrior, right? Here's the warrior stuff. Instead of us making a silly little blog, which is going to get forgotten about instantly, we're going to give all this info to you. You work on this video for a few weeks. Ship it. You go Nobble, right? Doran's Movies. We're giving you 2 different pieces of lore which tie together. Giving you 2 different pieces. Go do your thing. Go cray. Nixium, right? We've given you another piece of lore. Go make a machinima. Sit on that info. We're going to release this at scheduled times. Because companies already do this with content creators. Like, these deals already happen. So this isn't stuff which is new. This is stuff which already happens in the industry. And you set out this master web and you slowly leak things. Blizzard puts out some posts themselves. They get a few community guys who've been paid or what. Like, you wouldn't even really need to pay these guys. Like, they just like the game. They love the game. They do this for a living anyway. They know they'd get a lot of traffic for it. So, like, it solves that issue. Done. And if you do it that way, you have a very clever way of giving info, building hype, and then eventually when the game is ready, when it's ready, you then let people start streaming. Because the issue you have at the moment with the Legion Alpha is everyone is making the exact same content. And this isn't to bash anyone who's making videos. But if I go into my subscriptions and I look at my YouTubers who have access to Legion, it's this is the quest system, this is the quest system, this is the class order hall, this is the class, and they're all making the exact same videos because they're all competing with one another and they're just trying to ship out as much as they can. Now that's great, and obviously not everyone follows every single YouTuber, so it means that people still get it, but it means that the community, the YouTubing WoW community, is undervalued. It's just, they're not really doing anything of that much worth, because if everyone's just making a video on how to do the Ashbringer quest, then what's the point? Does that make sense? Yeah. And again, not trying to bash, it's just, it's poor PR because it becomes kind of redundant. So that's kind of all of that, and you go, okay then, well, we can see where there could be some improvement needed there. What's like the next thing? So the next issue with the current system is when you go back to the guys in the community who don't have access, people like myself, people like, I'm not going to name drop because I haven't talked stuff, but like people from other games I've spoken to recently about this very topic, they get put in an awkward position where they go, well, what am I merely meant to make content about in the meantime? Because their videos then become kind of meh. So I'm in this weird thing at the moment when it comes to Legion, where if you look at my uploads, I'm uploading nearly every day, but I'm making discussion videos, I'm making stuff which is interesting about the game, not so much about Legion. I'll do the occasional like Legion news video, but I'm not really making videos about Legion, I'm making videos about the game. And you go, okay, well that's fine. The problem when you have this like limited access which is given too early, because again, if the access was given far closer to launch, this would be a much smaller problem. A much smaller problem. But when you look at the channels and the fans and the people who just don't have access, so the fans lose their hype, right? The player base lose their hype. When you look at the content creators who don't have access and they do some projections, they map it out, they go, okay, so if alpha launched this date, the next alpha build is coming out this date, the beta build's coming out this date, we have a gap of about 4 months. If I don't get access within that 4 months, I'm probably not going to get access at all. And you go, okay, so when's the game launching? Oh, the game's launching about 5 months from these 4 months. So you then start looking at like a 9-month period between something like BlizzCon and the game launching. And you go, okay, so I guess I'll just go do something else then in the meantime. And you go, well, why does that matter? Like, why are you on a soapbox? The reason why that matters is you're pushing people who want to then make content into covering other games. And then if they're covering other games and they're not talking about your game, then that's less potential hype. And this whole thing, this boils down to of why companies give streamers and YouTubers early access is to build hype. That is the entire purpose. It's to build hype and it's to get free marketing. Yeah, occasionally, sometimes there's paid sponsorship deals going out, but generally it's just free. Generally it's just, if you give someone who loves games access to your game, he will make a video about it unless he's like the biggest hotshot EU and he hasn't got any time for anything else. But generally speaking, if you give someone access to your game, especially a game they're already playing, they're going to make you free marketing. So, to sort of put everything back in the box that we've splurged out there, is the system good? Is it, as a current system, is it good? It's okay. It's incredibly flawed. I think more companies should do targeted marketing, like I said earlier, giving particular people in the community particular access, making sure that you're not just throwing stuff on Twitch months and months too early, because when you're doing that, again, it burns the whole process down. It puts the people making the videos in an awkward situation, makes people watching the videos in an awkward situation, makes people who want to make the videos but can't in a very awkward situation. And in that case, it's just kind of bleh. Now, would I prefer that no one got access? Would you go, okay, well, let's go the extreme where no one gets access at all? Well, that just doesn't work either, because for that to work, you need a very good PR team. You need an in-house streaming team. And to be honest, I'm surprised more companies don't do that. The one company which I think did it very well was Carbine Studios with WildStar. I think they're the only company, at least that I know of, that I've watched the effects of, where, if you don't know, basically what they had is they had their developers streaming their game every week. You would go on Twitch, you would watch them play, it would go on YouTube, it'd be a podcast. As the game was getting hyped up to launch, they had access, they were streaming. No one else was streaming. Eventually other people started, but it was just Carbine. And they had full control over what went out to the public. And as a hype building technique, it was amazing. It also humanized Carbine's staff. It humanized the company. And you go, yeah, but that game flopped. Why are you talking about it? The reason that game flopped is the people that everyone became humanized to left the company. There was a dude called Frost who now works for Blizzard. Blizzard hired him. I wonder why. Probably because of what he did for WildStar. But there was a dude called Frost, and I was like, dude, this guy's really cool. He does all the videos. He's in all the live streams. We love this guy. He leaves the company. Ah, okay, I've lost that connection. Blizzard has people like that. They have law. Josh Allen. They have law. Use law. Use the people in your company. People love Chris Metzen. If Chris Metzen did what Ben Brode does, because it's not just like, oh, this is for all of Blizzard. This is mostly centered at the WoW team, because if you look across the Blizzard team, they are doing these things. Ben Brode occasionally, once every couple of months, makes a Hearthstone video. Everyone loves Ben Brode. Everyone, as a result, loves Hearthstone. They think the developers are listening. If you look at the Overwatch team have started doing this, where they're getting their guys making videos. They come across very well in the video. People then love them. People then think the developers are listening. You then look at the WoW guys and you go, eh. Every now and again there's a Q&A, which will happen twice, maybe 3 times a year at that. And it all just kind of fumbles into nothingness and you go, So, to summarize, more targeted, very heavily targeted use of the community. Stop these stupid access streams a year before your product even ships. That just isn't good for anyone. Make sure you're actually using your own in-house development team, because you have interns. There's someone in the office who probably doesn't have to do that much, who could probably just do a stream. I'm sure there's someone in Blizzard. There's one dude in Blizzard right now, probably watching Wreckful stream or something, going, yeah, I could probably do that for an hour once a week. Yeah. But anyway, bit of a rant. Apologies. Has this video purely come from the fact I don't have Legion access? Partially, I'm not gonna lie. I'm really annoyed. It makes making content particularly difficult, but anyway. I'm Tarke. This is a cat. The real cat's sleeping, probably complaining that I'm keeping her up, but yeah. Have a good day. Bye-bye.